Welcome to the Interpreting Turnitin Originality Reports tutorial. In this brief introductory video, we will talk about what originality reports are, why you would want to be familiar with them and why do you need to learn how to correctly interpret them, different types of plagiarism, as well as how you can use Turnitin originality reports to avoid plagiarism in your written assignments. So let's get started. So first, let's talk about what an originality report is. An originality report is the result of comparison between the text of your submission against a large Turnitin database, which consists of internet sources, works previously submitted to Turnitin by students such as yourself, as well as periodicals, journals, and other publications. Any matching or highly similar text that is discovered in your submitted paper will be detailed and highlighted in the originality report that you retrieve upon your submission. So, you may ask yourself, why do I need to know how to interpret Turnitin reports? As you may know, higher education institutions have rather high expectations when it comes to academic integrity. We expect that students are honest and responsible both in and out of the classroom, which includes writing assignments as well. This is where Turnitin originality reports becomes really helpful, as they can assist you maintain integrity and avoid plagiarism. But this is only possible if you know how to use them or to interpret them correctly. So, how does Turnitin help? Turnitin does not check to see if a piece of work is plagiarized or not. So in your report, it will not say plagiarism or non-plagiarism. You will have to do the interpretation for yourself. Your work is again checked against their database, and if there are instances where your writing is similar or matches against one of the sources that they have in their database, Turnitin will flag this for you to review. So you should know how to interpret these flagged areas, and more importantly, you need to know how to correct them before you submit your final draft for grading. This is especially important because you probably know by now that we take plagiarism very seriously. If a student is guilty of plagiarism, he or she may get a failing grade for the assignment, a failing grade for the course, or may even be dismissed from the program. So, depending on how serious their offense is, the consequences can be pretty severe. Now let's talk about plagiarism and what plagiarism actually is. There are two main types of plagiarism: word-for-word plagiarism and paraphrasing. We will define them here briefly, and then we will look at specific examples of both. But for now, you just need to kind of get an overview of a definition of each of these types. According to Indiana University, word-for-word plagiarism is committed when a student takes a sequence of 7 or more words from another source, but fails to identify that this is not their own work by using quotation marks. Additionally, the student fails to provide the in-text citations, which give credit to the author or authors, and fails to provide the bibliographic reference at the end of the paper. Another type of plagiarism is paraphrasing plagiarism, which is committed when a student summarizes an idea, again taken from another source. In other words, he or she changes the wording but fails to both cite the author or authors and to provide a corresponding reference on the reference page. So, what can you do to avoid plagiarism? How does Turnitin help? Well, Turnitin can definitely help by flagging or highlighting areas that are potentially plagiarized, But you also must utilize the knowledge, and you must utilize what you have learned in the Indiana University's How to Recognize Plagiarism Tutorials and Tests, which I provided a link for on the home page, and you were required to complete that prior to this instruction. You also need to use resources provided at Purdue Online Writing Lab. And this resource is very useful because it gives you an overview of how to correctly format your in-text citations as well as reference page. So now let's get started with going over interpretation, or actually first we will just go over the main parts of Turnitin originality reports. You should already be familiar with how to obtain your originality report, as this was explained previously on the Retrieving Your Turnitin report page of this website. So once you obtain your report, it will look something like the report shown here. Now, to protect the privacy of the student whose papers or reports I'm showing here, I was not able to use the actual live report, but I'm using a photograph of one so that I can cover up the student's name, which is located right here. The only difference is that when you're looking at a live report, you are able to scroll down and up, but here we're just seeing a portion of the first page. But that is okay because we only need to identify the main areas which are visualized here on this example. The originality report is separated into three main areas. First, across the top, we have the document viewer frame, which is right here. The document viewer frame shows the author's name, which I just circled previously, which is covered up here for privacy protection purposes, as well as the similarity index. The similarity index or similarity score indicates the percentage of matching or similar text that was found in your paper and is located in the upper right corner of the report, right here. The percentage that your report indicates does not reflect Turnitin's assessment of whether a paper has or has not been plagiarized. As remember, Turnitin is not capable of doing so. Remember that these reports are simply a tool that you can use to help you, as well as your instructor, find sources that contain text similar to submitted papers, as well as other internet sources, journals, and other publications. And then once you identify those, you can correct them. So just to illustrate how similarity score is not an indicator of whether or not there's plagiarism in your assignment, I can give you examples or tell you about the examples of papers that I have graded where the reports have had really low scores, as low as 5%, but they had plagiarism. I also have graded papers that had scores as high as 30%, but did not have plagiarism. So when you interpret these similarity indexes or similarity scores, do not get worried if your number is high. That does not always translate into plagiarized area or plagiarized paper. So what you need to do is assess every single area that is highlighted in Turnitin, as well as other areas, in order to avoid plagiarism. And we will talk about that in a little bit. Now, the second main area of the Turnitin Originality Report is the paper text, which is located right here. So the paper text is the text that you have submitted to Turnitin in its original formatting. So throughout the paper, you will see matching text, which will be highlighted in different colors. Now each color will correspond to the matching source. Now the matching sources will be found on the right hand side in this matching sources sidebar right here on your right hand side. So that is the third major area of the report. So if you look at this number 5 area that is highlighted, it's color coded, it's green. If you look in the matching sources sidebar, you can see that that source is displayed with the number 5 in the corresponding color. So everything is color coded so that you can match your highlighted area with the actual source that the Turnitin found this area or this text in. So it's pretty user-friendly in that aspect. Next, we will look at one of the main features that is really important to you, and you may want to use it as you work on interpreting your Turnitin reports. So here's another example of a Turnitin report, and on this example we see a highlighted area just like we did in a previous example, but we also want to explain an option that Turnitin gives you when it comes to these highlighted areas. If you click anywhere on the highlighted area here, you will get a pop-up window displayed right above the corresponding area. So the pop-up window will display the matching text within the source it matched it with. So you see that in the pop-up window, the area, the text that was matched, that was in the student's paper, is also highlighted within the text of the original source. You can click on the URL link, which is displayed in the top left corner here, and this will open up a new tab, new browser tab, and it will give you a view of the live website in which this matching source can be found. So this may not be crucial to you, but just so you know what happens if you click on it, and this is probably more important to your instructors, as this information can help them determine where the matched text came from. So if you provided citations for that matched text, then your instructor can check if you cited it correctly, if you provided all the necessary and correct information. So to close this pop-up, if it ever comes up and you want to close it so you can see the rest of your text and the rest of your flagged areas, you just need to click on this little X in the left or top right corner. So this pretty much concludes what we need to cover here in terms of introductory overview of Turnitin reports. And next, I invite you to open up the non-plagiarism examples video, in which we will review some examples of Turnitin originality reports with examples of highlighted areas that were actually not plagiarized. So please join me in the next tutorial video.